Okay. Hello. Good morning from the UK. Tasha, where are you joining us from?
I am joining you from lovely Adelaide, where we're, enjoying a vague little bit of sun before winter comes.
Oh, so okay. I always have to ask our guests, what is the temperature with you?
At the moment, I think we're hovering around 18 or 19 degrees, but beautiful sunny, big blue skies, and it's been a really wonderful couple of days after a lot of rain.
Oh, gorgeous. Honestly, what we would give for 18, 19 degrees. We're kind of hovering around, I don't know, 9 or 10 here at the moment. So yeah, it always fascinates me that you're on the other side of the world and the differences that we get between the two places and the northern and the southern hemispheres, of course. Welcome, everybody. Do come on in and let us know where you're joining us from. We love to see where our audience are coming in from. So we've got Charles from York. Oh, I'm from York. Hello. And oh my goodness, it's going really quickly now. David Bolton, I think I saw you were here. Good morning, David Bolton, and welcome. Let's see. Oh my goodness, here we go. Where have we got? Glasgow, Denmark, Canada, 4 a.m. Oh, really? Well done.
Amazing. That's a medal.
That is a medal. Fantastic. Come on in, everybody. Oh, got Lee from Adelaide and South Australia, Berlin, Manchester, New Zealand. Incredible. Isn't that? I still love the fact that we can reach around the world now. Still blows me away.
Love it.
Fantastic. Oh, so Tasha, it's worth getting up for at 4 a.m. There you go, Tasha.
I will take that as a compliment, and I'm going to put that as a line on my CV. Said that I was worth getting up 4 a.m. for. Woo!
Amazing. We've got Prakash from Mumbai. Fantastic. Thank you so much. So good to have everybody here. And someone from Spain, Bologna, Melbourne, Wellington. Cool. Okay. What a fantastic range of people we have here. So we're going to kick off because the chances are we run out of time. And we want to obviously maximize the next 45 minutes with Tash. So let's get kicked off. Okay, I have a little introduction that I do so I don't forget to say anything. Okay, here we go. So here we go. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world, and a very warm welcome to this clinical discussion. My name is Joanna Taylor, and I am Director of NOI Group in Europe. And I am absolutely delighted to be joined today by Professor Tasha Stanton. Welcome, Tasha.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's so fantastic. I'm excited for this conversation. So, for those of you who may not be familiar with Tasha's work, though I suspect that's not many of you on this call, Tasha, could you just introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about where you're working and what you're currently working on?
Of course. So my name is Tasha Stanton, and I work as a professor of clinical pain neuroscience at the newly merged Adelaide University, used to be University of South Australia. And I have the great fortune of getting to lead the Persistent Pain Research Group, which is actually based out of the South Australian Health and Medical Research Institute, so a big cheese grater building. And then I also am co-director of Impact in Health, which is sort of a wider grouping of allied health clinicians that kind of look to target a lot of different things in chronic disease. Um, in terms of myself, I have got background training as a physiotherapist and then
Mm.
have really gone fully into clinical pain neuroscience. I in my recent work, I think has mainly focused on, I guess, understanding both cognitive and sensory contributors to pain and understanding how we might be able to then target those using new treatments. So I do a lot of work in body perception and using
Mm.
novel technology like virtual and mediated reality. I do things in pain science education, particularly for knee osteoarthritis. And then I just, any of those studies that make me go, that's interesting. I do want to know the answer. That is also what I do. So I'm all over the place, but it's very good fun.
Yeah, fantastic. And you're not alone. A lot of the people that we have speaking on here are very much the same. They've got their fingers in a lot of different pies and doing a lot of different things that all kind of interrelate, and it's fantastic. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. So there's just a few practical things before we dive in. If you've got any questions through the session, then please just drop them in the Q&A or the chat. I'll be monitoring those, but Q&A would be preferable. We'll get to as many of those as we can through the session. I would urge you to try and drop your question in earlier rather than later, because we as I said, we do tend to run out of time. The recording of this session will be sent to everybody who has registered, but also I've dropped the link in the chat for the YouTube channel where it will be uploaded a little bit later on today. And I've also dropped in the link to the fantastic EP3 in Manchester, in the UK in June. So if you want to have a little look at that, then click that link through the session and check that out, because Tasha's going to be there and we're going to be talking a little bit about that later. So if you are interested in the EP3, then just stay on at the end, and we're going to talk about what Tasha's going to be covering at that, which she's been telling me about, and it sounds amazing. So we'll come to that at the end. Okay, so without further ado, we're going to get started. My first question, Tasha, is what do we know about pain science education now that we didn't know 5 years ago? And what has genuinely surprised you? So there's sort of two parts to that question.
Yeah, I think it's there has been so many new things in the last little bit that has made me really excited about it. And a lot of it actually really stems and speaks towards our involvement of patients and people with lived experience and really working, quite deeply with them to understand, what concepts resonated with you, with pain science education. Where did things fall down? And I guess where I've also been really interested is trying to understand those experiences in more depth so that we can then know how we might target things for different people, but also are there new ways that we can either promote implementation of it, so make it easier for clinicians to be able to provide and specific to the situation that they're in, the clinical scenario, but also just whether we might be able to look at different models of actually applying it. So whether people with lived experience of pain might actually be working hand in hand with us as, clinicians, which some of the work my group has been doing has been really, going down that route and trying to understand it. Because I think
Mm,
that there's so much power that people who have lived experience and have, gone through that bring to this, and so much, of course, credibility. And I think that the possibilities of almost supporting people in their return to valued life activities and
mm,
self-management is just such an important and key thing that perhaps we've possibly done it to a certain extent, but maybe we
mm,
have this opportunity to really engage with it more. So
mm.
there's like that bit that I'm really excited from like an implementation side, but I'm also just like always genuinely excited because like, our level of information and knowledge that comes out is always growing. And I think I've been continually impressed and even and just taken aback at the level of the human body's capacity for change. So
Yeah.
our ability to be bioplastic for tissues and systems to adapt and change. And I mean, every now and then I just do little dives and I read, mouse-based papers in Nature Neuroscience and these different things. And
Mm,
it's just incredible. Like you see things like with, sorry, I've got a person leaving, like learning tasks, motor learning tasks, showing changes in myelination on cortical neurons, and that helps us engage and learn and improve our performance on the task. And like that sort of stuff at that sort of level blows me away and really reinforces though
mm.
why what we do is important and what we're saying is important to people in giving that understanding and under capacity for change, but also then the things that we are doing. I think sometimes in the general world, exercise and activity get a bit of a bad rap as sort of just
Mm,
like, oh, there's sort of nothing there. But like the amount of things that when we're doing focused performance on something, when we're, starting to move more, be more active, the amount of changes that that is inducing, like
yeah.
it's enormous and it's incredible. And so for me, I think I'm just continually blown away at the new knowledge that we have that we can then take to those clinical encounters and explain as part of that bioplastic phenomenon.
Yeah.
So yeah, I may be slightly biased though.
No, I love that. It's absolutely fascinating. I really agree. And in terms of the people with the lived experience, what's the sort of key thing that you feel that they've helped to understand better?
Yeah, so I think there's been a couple of things. So in some of the work that we have, I guess, been doing in terms of um, how people have struggled or found it challenging to, even if they have an increased or an improved understanding of pain, how do you actually make some of those lifestyle behavior shifts? Because there's
Yeah.
actually, there's so many different barriers, and sometimes it can be really hard if you maybe don't have great access to clinical care.
Mm,
Like maybe you only had access for 4 scenarios, and then you have a bit of a fall off and flare up, and you're not really sure where to go. And it's been really interesting because working with our patient partners, they've really highlighted the value of just having someone to be able to go to talk to that has been through it, but also that does have an understanding of how to apply those principles. So, one of my PhD students, for example, Monique Wilson, has done amazing work in co-creating basically a lived experience training program that we call OA Champions that upskills them on pain science concepts, but also provides a bit of guidance and frameworks for how they might help support someone else, so a mentee, they're their
yeah.
mentor, and how they can work within that interaction to support their engagement in healthy lifestyle behaviors, but in a way that is not speaking like trying to make them into paraprofessionals,
Yeah.
but making it so that they can take, we can help them identify their lived experiences that kind of match those different concepts and that they
Mm,
can use as exemplars for someone. And we're
yeah.
just testing this right now, so we're feasibility testing this at the moment. But their their input about the fact that it's hearing from someone that has been through it and that has navigated it, like we know that, but we also didn't know necessarily their level of comfort in wanting to take some of that on and being that person. So I don't know, for me, it's just been a wonderful foray into the possibilities.
Yeah.
And whether or not things like this actually, we need to be thinking about this at a health system level. Like I know New
Yeah.
Zealand has people with lived experience that are part of, pain management units and teams. And look, I think about like if I put my physiotherapist hat on and I think about being in a clinic, that would be amazing
Mm,
to have a bunch of lived experience partners that then when I see someone in the 2 weeks before I see them again, I'm like, actually tee up and have a coffee with them.
yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
they're occurring in that in between part. Like I don't know, I'm really excited about possibilities like this.
That gives me goosebumps what you've just said. It's so exciting, and I can hear how excited you are. That is incredible. I didn't realize that's what you were working on. Really, really fascinating.
Fingers in many pots.
Yeah. That is absolute. That is so fascinating. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Tash. That's really interesting. And we've got a quick question here. We'll take it as we go through the flow. So, from Jasmine, would you consider modern pain science education to be a mind-body intervention stroke therapy?
Great question. Look, I think it probably does match that description of it because I do think what we're thinking about is we're trying to actually almost argue that they're one and of themselves. Maybe there is no distinction between
Yeah.
mind and body, but that what we're really trying to do is understand um, our daily human experiences as an emergent phenomenon that most times requires a body, although phantom limb pain, that might be our little misnomer.
Mm,
But for many of those, I think those aspects, I think we inherently are always dealing with both. Like even when we think about, a psychological state, like if we feel anxious, there's shifts in your bodily biological processes with that.
yeah.
We see this with things like inflammation. Higher levels of inflammation, you feel kind of crappy, like, when you're sick. But when you also have negative, mood, that's a bidirectional effect on your
Mm,
immune system that's basically putting it on like the ready to go. So I think, yeah, for me then, because pain science education really kind of explores those links and tries to really bring those together. It tries to almost bridge that gap between mind body.
yeah. Brilliant. Thank you very much. And thank you for the question, Justin. That was a great question. Thank you. Okay, so moving on. You work at the intersection of neuroscience and clinical practice. What does the latest research tell us about how the brain processes pain information, and why does that matter for how we educate patients?
Hmm. Look, I think what has been really nice to see is actually rather almost consistent evidence over
Mm,
time where you see that, when something hurts, it's a myriad of activation, which to me then, and it can be individual to that person, but there's the fact that you're getting just such a myriad of activation with all these different aspects of an experience of pain, also to me really just solidifies that, complex multifactorial nature of it. I've been really intrigued in the last little bit because, I'm a nerd in body perception and, various changing things, changing the way your body looks to you is we're starting to, I guess, understand some of the links between what's going on when people get pain relief with some of that. So seeing,
okay.
links between your visual body network, the area that lights up when you see your own body, and greater communication with areas that typically light up when you would have a noxious or a danger signal coming up to the brain. And
Okay.
it's that communication. And to me, like having those studies, for me, we don't always necessarily need those brain imaging studies as a, like to objectively show something's occurred, because of course, self-report is real, like whatever people are experiencing is the real
Yeah.
thing. But what it is nice, I think, to do is to explore some of the kind of mechanistic underpinning of this, and that gives it a little bit more. I never like to say scientific validity, but other than just people have changed how they're reporting, and
Yeah.
because that I think is sometimes used as a a way to say like we don't really know what's happening. Maybe they're just reporting this differently, not something's actually changing. So I actually think
Mm,
those mechanism studies are really important to show that it is looking at different changes in the way that your system is processing things, and that potentially understanding some of those things allows us to maybe make those treatments better.
okay.
Because I mean, ultimately, I guess one of the reasons I sort of got into this intersection part of things is we do these big clinical trials and they're really important, but we also don't really have great understanding of why or why they didn't work. And
Yeah.
we have our theories and we measure those things, but as we know, everything's complex. There are so many different factors going on that I think also putting in mechanism testing to those clinical trials is really invaluable, because
Mm,
it might be that like it helps us understand why someone doesn't respond or someone, is a hyper super responder. And that's really useful information, I think.
yeah. Really useful. That's fascinating. Have you got an example of something that you've sort of recently or discovered where it would be very clinically applicable for a clinician?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think like we're actually just looking at some data right now where we do something with a virtual reality bike where we use perceptual science kind of, or I call it perceptual trickery to our
Yeah.
advantage, where what we do is have people cycling and then the environment, virtual environment, moves by quicker than your true physical effort.
Yeah.
And even if you go faster and you try to catch up, it still will move by quicker. So you always get this kind of little error. But this little error makes you feel like you're really like smashing it. You're doing so well. You really are in, people enjoy it a lot more.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting because I guess what we're exploring from this is for a longer period of time. So, for example, if we give this over 6 weeks as an intervention, we're actually seeing that things like exercise enjoyment are a really key aspect of people engaging more and sticking with it, which makes good sense.
Yeah.
But it helps us understand that actually each time we provide this VR bike, it's not like people are just getting habituated or used to it. Like they're not, fixing that error and then they don't feel good. Actually,
Yeah.
each time that we're doing it, we're continuing to sort of get this effect that means that we should expect to get greater effects over time. So for me, then that immediately has clinical relevance that it might not actually be at first about getting people to do 3 sets of 10. It
Yeah.
might be at first making sure that is an enjoyable experience, that people
Yeah.
feel like they've accomplished something, they've done really well, and that we use different ways to keep that enjoyment. And I mean, a lot of that, I wouldn't say
Mm,
that is a groundbreaking conclusion, but where I do also get really excited is we've started to also look at some of the ways that the body might change when we're undergoing these different bodily illusions. And if it's that change that seems to be important to the effect on pain.
Mm.
And we don't have the data analyzed on this yet. But for me, that's really relevant to know because if it isn't the specific amount of change that they have in the way they see their own body, then actually we can maybe get these effects through other ways. And that might be easier to implement clinically, for example.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of, I think, different avenues that you can go down when you sort of have a little bit of a look at mechanism.
Amazing. That is so cool, isn't it? And the possibility for that, possibilities are huge, aren't they? But I mean, such a simple thing like increasing somebody's enjoyment of exercise, which I'm sure most people in the audience would agree is something that they try to do with their patients. But then to actually understand why that's important and
Mhm.
that you're working in the lab to prove that and the further reaching effects of that is just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I think it's always interesting to kind of explore like too with like that level of enjoyment. Like what is that doing from a bioplastic lens in terms
Yeah,
of priming us to be able to change, to be able to do things? Because like we, as I kind of mentioned even at the start, like that like negative affect changes our immune system. Like
yeah,
that actually might be really important to create the right bioplastic conditions for us to be able to have adaptations and change to a given exercise stimulus. And
yeah,
that is not at all the way that we look at it. Like exercise stimulus, we think about reps, sets, how much we do. That really may be less. And we know, like, for example, with older adults,
mm,
well, anytime we annoyingly get a bit older, bioplasticity is still there, but it works a bit slower. But how can we use some of these things then to maximize that capacity? So yeah,
yeah,
I feel like I need a few more hours in the day to test all of this stuff, but it for me it's a really relevant way to look at things because it
yeah.
sometimes changes our narrative behind something.
Yeah, for sure. That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you. And just going to tag this in here because you're going to be talking about some of this stuff at the EP3 event in Manchester. And if I can see that the chat's gone a bit wild now, so obviously everybody's going, "Oh my God, this is fantastic!" So if if you want to get in the room with Tash, that's what you need to be looking at. But that is so cool, Tasha. Thank you so much. Right, we've got some questions here. Let's have a quick look through. La da 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 da. Pain sounds good. Okay, makes sense. How about the pen education? Okay, here we go. Well, I'm going to take this one from Sinead because it's relevant to exactly what you've just been talking about, and that is how about pain education or use of virtual reality in people who are very active or the sporting population? I guess it's about does that differ? Does it more
Mm.
effective? Does it have more impact than if you say working with an
Sure.
older population who are not used to it?
Sure. So we've shown, maybe I'll do the virtual reality what part first. We've shown that kind of across different sporting levels, we still get this similar effect where if we manipulate kind of visual gain,
Mm,
we will get, it makes them feel better. What we do, and we haven't tested that fully, but we've had a range of different sporting backgrounds of the people that
mm,
have been in our studies. One thing though is that we do have to make that quite unique to the person. So the amount that the visual gain that we increase, because if you make it too fast, you feel sick. And if you make it not
sure.
enough, it's almost at that little threshold. So that differs when you have differing
Yeah.
experience. In terms of pain science education, I find that oftentimes when we're working with sporting populations, it's actually trying to almost undo the no pain, no gain mindset and the undoing or targeting the boom bust, where they're almost, well, it's not across the board, but many times it's almost that they're more likely to push hard on the days that they're feeling good,
Mm,
and then really pay for it afterwards. And I mean, it's interesting to consider when we're putting inputs into our system that way, what are we teaching things, so to speak? Like if we just think not literal teaching, but like on a wider level, that experience is that like basically if I do whatever and I have this big flare, the good thing to learn is that actually I maybe need pain to come on quicker or
mm,
at even greater intensity because this idiot won't stop. Like, so I think that I think
Yeah,
that there's definitely nuance with pain science education in terms of the different populations. And we've found this actually, we've been doing a little bit of work with veterans who have knee osteoarthritis and it's painful and they're engaging in exercise. And that often is a really important message because for them, they'll ignore it and just push through. And I
yeah,
think available evidence suggests that, well, it's okay. We don't think that they're nearing tissue damage. Um, I think well, I would argue based on our findings that there's a certain sweet zone where it's the best zone for bioplastic change. And it's the area where you're pushing your system a little bit, but you're not getting those big increases in pain, swelling, stiffness that last for
yeah,
quite a while after you've done that activity because we've gone past to like our system capacity. And then all
yeah,
we're, in my mind, in a theoretical sense, reinforcing kind of that hyper protectiveness. So yeah, I do think that there's a lot of nuance there, but that it's actually really exciting because it does also mean that I think many of those concepts are really relevant. And I know that Lorimer is definitely speaking to this in athletic
yeah.
populations at EP3.
Yeah, there's a session on that at EP3, isn't there?
Yeah.
I'm really interested. I know this is going slightly off tack, but you mentioned the word there, the sweet spot. Would you just explain that, expand that a little bit? Because I
Yeah,
think
of
this is it's
course.
a really important um, and highly clinically relevant um, part of what you're talking about. So it would be great
Yeah,
just to, if you wouldn't mind, just chatting a little bit
yeah, of
about that.
course. Yeah, we kind of just conceptualize it as kind of in this case, if we think about activity, the amount of activity that's not too much and it's
Mm,
not too little. It's in the sweet zone. So
mm,
the too much bit, or people call this Cinderella or Goldilocks zone, but it's I guess this idea that um, if we're pushing our systems to the point that there has to be a protective response we've not
mm.
almost allowed it the capacity to shift in a way that would back off that protective response. So we're
Okay.
trying to get it so that if we're doing an activity, for example, people have to work a little bit harder. They need to be feeling their muscles work. They need to be breathing a bit harder. They might feel a little bit of discomfort, a bit of pain, but nothing
Yeah.
that's going to blow out. And that's giving the system a nudge. And we think that that's what's needed to basically, if we think about Twin Peaks model and you've got your safety buffers and get this big
Mm,
enhanced safety buffer when you have had persisting pain, it's pushing into the safety buffer. And it's like nudging it up over time so that it's almost saying to the system, no, you're okay. You're okay. This is fine. You can do this. Well, we're also maybe increasing physical capacity if a person has potentially is deconditioned. But I think this concept, though, we often think about it, and probably because I've come at it with the physiotherapist lens in terms of activity, but it exists
mm,
for education. Like we've all had those experiences. And maybe when I certainly did when I just started,
yeah.
where I basically vomited up every single bit of information that I knew. And you completely, it's too much. People obviously can't take that in. It's way too much. And it's not even needed half of it. And so
Mm,
think for us thinking about like our patient education suite zones, where are they at? Like how much brain fog do they have today? Like how much are they struggling today?
yeah.
And what could I do to bring this make this concept easier? Or is this something that actually today isn't the day? Like
Yeah.
I think it's really thinking about and working with that person so they understand their own sweet spot and that our
Yeah.
sweet zone. And that can be, I think, useful even in like the way that they learn. So not, trying to read everything all at once, doing it in little chunks and reflecting and thinking and seeing if you can explain it to someone else. Like all
Mm,
of those aspects that I think really underpin constructivism, this idea that changing people's mindset and understanding of a condition is actually incredibly important to the way their body responds, the way everything
yeah.
works.
Yeah. That so the sweet spot, if I understand this correctly, it isn't just in relation to the say the exercise or the treatment that you're offering. It's also in relation to the information that you're imparting to the
It
patient about
is.
the pain science
And
education.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I would say it could also be unique to truthfully a tissue. So the sweet zone, maybe for cartilage, is going to be very different for the sweet zone of muscle
Yeah.
because the way that they respond physiologically is different. So I think that it's a concept that's sort of meant to help guide our complexity of thinking and help think of all the different aspects that we
Mm,
might need to take into account when we're providing an intervention to someone.
mm. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. We've got a nice question in the Q&A, and it's from Alexandra. So I'm just going to bring this in here. Thank you for your question, Alexandra. It's great, perfectly timed. Your discussion regarding the enjoyment of exercise, specifically using VR, is really interesting. You have also previously mentioned barriers to healthy lifestyle changes. How can we as clinicians bridge the gap for patients who do not have access to much in the way of equipment, healthcare, exercise, in terms of getting patients to enjoy exercise despite pain? So, with sort of some practical things. What are you saying, Tasha? What is your view on this?
Yeah, I think actually context then becomes really important sometimes when we don't have these fancy tools or things to help. But it's the fact that if we're having them do something, let's say, even if it's just as simple as like doing lower limb strengthening exercises, why do we need to do them at home? Why, maybe if there's a park nearby and they're going with a friend or something, we're kind of going
Mm,
safety and me or sim hunting, that idea of getting that balance between safety and danger and being able to influence pain. But I think a lot of that, those things and reflecting and thinking with that person of the things that they do really truly enjoy and trying to either
mm,
embed exercise within that context, or even just almost using those enjoyment things as a reward. So even
yeah,
if that exercise, if it's not possible and they really don't like it, having a reward afterwards can be really helpful. That because I think that is the hard thing about exercise is that often its benefits are delayed. So we see, usually benefits
mm,
on pain anywhere between, 6 to 8 weeks or maybe even 6 months, depending on where
yeah,
someone starts from. And we often see improvements in function first. So I think using that in that capacity can be really powerful. And it also reconnects that person with them because so many times, I mean, we hear these stories where people that have had persisting pain, they've lost them. They've lost self, they've
mm,
lost identity. And going back and remembering and really taking time to explore things that bring them joy, that make them really feel happy, that's also reconnecting with that part of them that also might not have been fostered in the last little bit. So I think there's probably kind of lots of ways that that could be a really powerful experience.
yeah. Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. Well, we've got lots of questions here. I'm just gonna, I think we're gonna, there was I wanted to ask you, but I think we've kind of covered it. But I just wondered if there was anything else that you wanted to add here. It's one that we get a lot, and it's always in people's minds that when pain science education, when it doesn't land with a patient, and you can see that it is not in front of you,
Mm.
what's the research saying about that's actually going wrong? And
Mm.
in your experience, what should clinicians be thinking about doing differently?
Mm. Look, I think first of all, anytime if you've experienced it as a clinician, it's like just taking a moment and being like, every single person has experienced this. I'm not
Yeah.
alone. But I think, I mean, I guess we're starting to do a little bit more like in-depth research about this to try to understand this. So we've got, for example, recordings of different pain science education delivery, and we're
Okay.
actually evaluating it to understand, like validation and how that comes across. Because I think one of the biggest challenges can be navigating the balance of
Mm,
providing people with information or concepts that is probably quite different than what they've heard or their base understanding of those things.
mm,
And but still doing it in a way that you're not invalidating their experiences. And that can be quite challenging, I think. And I
mm,
think to me, that's where um, often not starting out too big with people, like really connecting with them, understanding their story. And we know like good clinicians are just amazing at this,
mm,
figuring out where they're coming from, and then just putting in tiny little nuggets. So something that
mm,
pops up that is, maybe within the history that comes up, and they report that there's also, in addition to the pain, they've got gut problems. Not perfect for them, but perfect in terms of a pain science education foray where
yeah.
it's sort of like, wow, like this. So did you know that gut stuff might actually make a difference and that we're actually a little bit more complex than we think? Plant that little nugget, maybe give something for when they're going home and taking a look at things to do at homework. But
Mm,
I think that I guess for me, a lot of it is doing your very best to understand that person and getting that base trust so that then even if you're starting to go a little bit off course or they're getting defensive, they still trust you
Yeah.
and they're willing to give you more birth and yeah, just be, oh, okay, no, I'm just going to sit it out and follow it. But I think that there's really tangible strategies for that. Like
Mm.
Sarah Woolwork, for example, is doing excellent work in validation and how we can do this better as
Yeah.
clinicians and do it in a way that is actually quite authentic for us.
Yeah.
Because I think you see sometimes clinical encounters and it we videoed our own and oh man, it's so painful. Like it's really hard to watch that back, but it's
Yeah.
incredible things that you learn from it. And I think one of the things that I found is when I do it, one I have to moderate my energy a little bit because people are coming in and they're not wanting to be met by sometimes exciting things. They're wanting to be met by someone that is sitting and really listening and taking everything really seriously. And
Yeah.
sometimes I didn't realize that for me, enthusiasm could almost come across as downplaying that problem. And that was like glass
Interesting.
shattering for me, but a really useful thing to understand. So I would argue there's probably a lot of different things
Yeah.
that could where it didn't land. But one of the things that I think is a really critical area going forward is feeling comfortable in providing validation to patients in the context of still providing new things. And some of the ways we do kind of do that is by framing expectations a little bit. And
Yeah.
so saying things like, within this is some of, the newest information that we have. So it's quite possible that some of the things that we might talk about today might be different or even conflicting to the things that you've heard before. I'd really like to explore that with you, and see what kind of fits your situation, and explore some of the things that you've been told in the past and where that might sit with the new information
Yes.
that we have.
Yeah.
Because then it's sort of like it's not going to be a surprise that there might be new things that don't jive with what they've been told before. And it's like you're inviting them to be on a journey together. Um, the only other thing I would say for this is if there is someone where it feels quite hard, what we have done is we've used pre-recorded videos because then if they don't agree, they're mad with the person on the video and not you.
Mm, mm, yeah, 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 yeah. That is so that is so fascinating, isn't it? That the self-reflection around that as a clinician to actually see how you're showing up through recording that session. Amazing. We've done sessions and there's some in the clinical discussion on the YouTube channel about this exact topic where we've done a half an hour deep dive about just on the subject of validation
Yeah,
and
amazing.
how you meet the patient at their story and anyway, check that out if you're interested. The link is in the chat. So okay, I'm conscious of time, so we're just going to take this. I'm just going to have a quick look and see if there's any questions here. Yes, so we've had one here that um oh goodness, they're coming in really quickly now. Okay. And oh yeah, I think Alexandra's. You mentioned someone currently researching the area of validating experiences. Was that Sarah Woolwork?
All work. Yeah.
Woolwork, yeah, Sarah Woolwork, Alexandra. So check her out. And then we had somebody saying that realizing that enthusiasm can come across as downplaying the person's experience is a great insight. It, it is incredible. Were there any other people that were in that research where they didn't realize what they were doing was actually the impact that it was having? Could you
Yeah.
recall any
So we,
others?
we sort of did this as part of a training for one of our clinical trials where we were practicing kind of the new intervention. And so we videoed all of us. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's really interesting because everyone kind of came away, like we all looked at it together and kind of analyzed it and gave our thoughts. And it was such a useful experience because, yeah, another person sort of came away that they almost like don't trust their own memory to remember everything. So they were really writing down a lot of different things. And
Mm,
then when they were watching it back, they realized how kind of off put that was for the off-putting that was for the patient. And but then when they would look up and look at the patient would be happy that they were looking up. So they would never get
Yeah,
that visual cue unless you were actually watching it as a fly on the wall. And they just said, oh my gosh, I need to change what I do there because that person felt like I wasn't there with them. Like I was not
right.
there meeting them at their space in the room that they're at. I was very busy trying to make sure I had my notes done. And she's
Yeah,
like, that's not what I meant at all, but that seems to be what's coming across. So yeah, no, I think it's a brilliant practice
yeah,
to do,
fascinating.
to reflect.
Yeah, I think people have really enjoyed hearing that. That was really good. So, Tasha and I are just going to, we're going to, at the end of this session, I'm just going to ask Tasha to give us a key takeaway from today, something that she would change about how pain science education is currently being delivered. But just before we come to that, that's our wrap up. Then we're just going to talk a little bit about the EP3 that's going on in Manchester, UK in June. And so we have got this incredible lineup. We have not done one of these EP3s, and we are so excited about it. We have got Tasha Stanton, Lorimer Moseley, David Butler. Oh my goodness, he hasn't been here for years. We've got Mick Thacker, we've got Ian Taverner, Abby Taylor, Brendan Muir, and Luke Postlethwaite. And it's 3 full days of cutting edge pain science practical workshops and a lot of fun, I believe. And now I've never been to an EP3 before, Tasha. So could you just tell me what I would expect if I were to decide to join the event in
Oh.
Manchester on the 5th of June?
I I've been to I think now maybe two or three of the proper EP3 events, and they're just I love them. They're one of my favorite conferences to go to, particularly just because it's such a creative, innovative group of people that are talking about possibility and linking those like new findings and things that we know directly to how that might impact clinical practice and the importance that that might have in the way that we, give pain science education and deliver it. But it's also just because it's so much fun. Like it's
Yeah.
just I think I've probably seen like the most hilarious, ridiculous things occur at these events, and I actually just think that's really important. And I love the connection that does develop at these. And in fact, that's one of our whole sections of talking about and exploring the
Yeah.
power and the role of connection on day three. And yeah, I just think it's a very special event to go to. And I always like every single time that I can hang out and hear Dave Butler speak, I'm there.
Oh, I know. I can't wait to see him. I think it must be about 2 years or 3 years. I got quite drunk with him in a Japanese restaurant in London about 3 years ago, and that's the last time I've seen him. So I
This
can't
is amazing.
wait.
This is classic Dave. Come here, darling. Let me caress your liver.
It was just one of the best afternoons. It was absolutely brilliant.
Oh,
David
that's
Bolton
so
was there
good.
as well, David. I hope you remember that. It was brilliant. Thank you, Sasha. You couldn't have said anything better about an EP3. They are about connection, not only with other clinicians, not only with the people that are presenting, but in a much broader sense, connecting dots, pulling all this stuff together, the new research, the different perspectives, pulling it all together in a really fun way. And I guarantee if you are able to attend, you will leave a different clinician to the one that walks in the door at the beginning. So thank you, Tasha. And just as a parting note from today, based on the conversation that we've had, which I have thoroughly enjoyed, I've been absolutely gripped by what you were saying, and I think that a lot of the audience have too. I'm sorry that we couldn't get to all of your questions because there were some great questions in there, but we never have enough time. So, if you could change one thing about how pain science education is currently delivered, what would that be?
I think in the first session, we should be doing nothing about trying to increase someone's understanding and all about trying to figure out what we will learn from them. And then take that learning of who they are and think about how we want to provide it in the second session. So it's almost like turning the model on its head in the sense that what can I learn about this person's experience that might inform what I look into and the way that I frame this. Um, it might be controversial because I do think we also can have really nice big impact when we kind of get that messaging right and put those little nuggets. But I would just be so interested because working with people with lived experience, there were so many assumptions that I think I went, as I throw my pen, as I went into that thinking that this is the problem, this is the challenge. And then you
Mm.
work with them and you're like, that wasn't the problem. That wasn't
Yeah.
the challenge. That was my assumption of this. And that completely changed the way that I do research, the way that I think
Mm.
about research questions, and how we kind of devote our resources to things. And so I wonder if something similar like that might be something in pain science education.
Amazing. Thank you. And what a great note to finish on. Thank you so much, Tasha. I have thoroughly enjoyed
Pleasure.
this today. Thank you so much to everybody who has joined us live. And for those of you watching on replay, I hope that you enjoy this conversation as much as we all have. It'll be on the YouTube channel in about an hour. Please, if you may want to go back and watch it again. I can see that everybody's really enjoyed it. So many positive comments. Thank you, thank you, thank you, everybody. Take care. Maybe see some of you in Manchester, which would be fantastic, and enjoy the rest of your day or evening. Okay, thanks, Tasha. See
Yes,
you.
good to
See
see
you
you.
in Manchester.
Good job.
Take care.